Okay, here we have another spot against a weak opponent again. Against a weak opponent again, and I just want to mention that the last few hands, of course, have been seemingly smaller pots against weak opponents, but Yurk and I do want to harp on these situations because they're highly profitable and are really going to increase your bottom line in the end. So although they seem easy, the easy spots typically are also the most profitable. So we want to make sure you're doing it right. But in the next, or for the rest of the episode, and in the next couple, we do have some more complex spots against more thinking opponents. Anyhow, in this hand, it folds to the small blind. He min opens. We decide to 3-bet with Queen 10 5 deuce double suited. I know Yurk had a specific read on this player that he was opening far too much, blind versus blind. Now, we do see that he's just over half stacking, but again, I think this is similar, or the logic behind the 3-bet is similar to the other hands, where 3-betting in position against wide ranges is just going to be a good way to print money in terms of building up a pot for the opponent to give up on later, and in general, taking the initiative in hands, becoming more aggressive does make it easier to play, rather than taking the passive route. Yurk, is that pretty accurate in the sense that you said that he was opening a lot blind versus blind, and that this is typically the way that you adjust against these players in these kinds of situations?
Exactly, and I also noticed that a lot of players are too loose pre-flop, oftentimes also very loose on the flop, but when it gets to later streets they are actually become tighter, and we do have more fold equity on later streets. So this is like the most profitable situation ever, that we are going to able to win a lot of pots on the turn or the river without getting to showdown, and that also boosts our red line a lot, and helps us to improve our non-showdown winnings.
No, that's really good, and I think this is something that I could actually do better. A lot of players, and I think I've fallen into this trap in the past, where you do understand that you're supposed to widen your range in position against weaker opponents, but a lot of players don't do it in an aggressive way. If you're just going to peel in position and then fold to a lot of c-bets, it's what I'm getting at is if you're not taking advantage of position correctly, then you're actually the one who's building up the pots and giving up on them. You're the one who's actually losing money. In this case, we're sort of taking advantage of the hand and just winning the dead money that way.
Exactly. So as we see, if we move on to the flop, that on this board, I mean, we have the flush draw, third nut flush draw. It's not the perfect a hand that we are fist pump stacking off with, since the SPR is actually about 4.5. But on the other hand, if we have a read on the opponent, like a reasonable sample size, and we know that he's only, for example, only raising here on this flop with sets and nut flush draw combos, I see an argument for c-betting here and folding to a raise. But whenever we know that he's also check raising lighter with something like a parent of a straight draw or something, then we definitely have to stack off here. And I think the best way to prepare ourselves and to manipulate the SPR is to bet here a reasonable biggish amount. So I would say 2/3 pot size at least, but I could also argue for a little bit of a bigger size.
Yeah, and as we see, in this hand, we bet 30 into basically 50, so I think our sizing's pretty good given what the SPR is, more so also because of what we set ourselves up for on the turn. You mentioned this in the previous hand, when it was deuce 3-4 rainbow, how we liked smaller sizing, and as we can see, since this board is more dynamic, we chose a little bit more, a bigger sizing. So I like that.
I think the sizing is okay, but I would actually prefer to make it even bigger, like around 36 or 38, because as we just mentioned, we can actually assume that his raising range is pretty tight, and the bigger we make it, the less inclined he becomes to raise wider. But what was going to happen, that since he's pretty loose, he's going to check call a lot, and then we prepare, then we can basically shove or put him for a stack off decision on a lot of turn cards. So it actually benefits us a lot, and we once again maximize that money that we win on this street on for the times he calls a flop and folds the turn.
Right.
So I think we can also argue for a bigger bet here.
Cool. And I mean, yeah, I guess it just depends a little bit if you're planning on like bet calling or not. If you are like planning on bet folding, I guess that a smaller size is better. But if you're planning on like betting and barreling, then of course like betting bigger is going to be better.
Exactly.
Cool. What ends up happening, of course, is he check calls. Turn's actually amazing for us. I like it because I think that it's a turn that's very unlikely to improve him. And I think that a lot of times when players do check call flops like this, they have one pair of hands, and those kind of hands are gonna, be forced to let go to like a big bet on the turn, which is actually what we do. We follow up with a big bet. What do you think of your sizing here, Yurik? It looks like it's something that you typed in. Maybe you did that to look stronger. I'm not sure. But do you think that there's a difference between like typing in 94 or actually potting it? Or can you explain your logic for that?
Actually, I think it doesn't make a lot of difference since we're obviously planning on bet calling at that point. Like we can't ever fold here once he shoves now.
Yeah.
And maybe since there's this like psychological difference, maybe I would have been better off to make it like 100 something if I don't want to make it pot size, or just make it pot size, because when he sees 100 there, it looks more scary than 90 something.
Right.
So actually, I would prefer to make it above 100, but I guess it's overall pretty little difference, because I know a lot of players that are in those like loose, straightforward category are very light on the flop, but now on the turn he's able to fold like 9 with a gut shot, or a bare 10-8 type of hand, maybe even bare jacks or queens, just hands that he fears that are like he doesn't feel comfortable to stack off with them, and he prefers folding and still having some stack left to continue playing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that. What you said about players' ranges early in the hand are a lot wider than they are later in the hand. So that's a good thing to think about when you're from like a hand reading standpoint.
Yeah, and what's ending up here happening that he is folding, so we pick up a decent pot without getting to showdown, just with a pair of deuces.
Very nice.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Casino Crime here. Now, if you like this video and you want more, then go ahead and click the subscribe button below right now. And if you want to join me for more of my 6 max success secrets and free video tutorials, just click the link to the right. See you inside the trainings. Good luck.